This is LW again with the cure for depression. Rules. This is rule number 8, and this one basically says is letting you know that there's nothing wrong with you. It's not you. It's the pills that you're on. It's those depression pills that you're on. That's the problem. Okay? So now there's nothing wrong with you. I just want to let you guys know. It's those depression drugs many of you are on that's causing you to feel down, feel lethargic, feel just like just bad. I mean, a lot of you guys are complaining on social media how bad you feel. Guess what? It's not you. It's those pills that you're taking. Okay, they're called depressants, or another word for it is downers. You probably heard that term if you grew up in like the 80s. But it's meant to take mood down on purpose. The user's mood down. And we're just going to give you a little bit of a history lesson on, depressants and how they came about. Now, most of them were made with psych ward, mental institutionalized patients in mind to keep them docile. Okay, I'm going to say that again just so you guys get it. All right. These depressants were made, the target of these depressants was mental institutionalized patients to keep them docile. Okay. Now, if you've never seen a movie of, guys in mental institutions, these guys get super strength when they are, when they're institutionalized, they get super strength and they can fight off the strongest nurse or, these big strapping guys that are working in these institutions. So they needed something to keep them in a zombie-like state, to keep them manageable, to keep them from losing it. Okay, so these drugs were meant with those guys in mind, mental institution patients. Now, if you go look up the meaning of depressants, you'll start to get the picture. Okay, that's why people, which is you now, feel so lousy on depressants. You feel like a zombie. You feel like I can't wake up. It was meant for that. It was meant for mental institutionalized patients to keep them in a manageable state. And it didn't matter that they didn't feel good because they wanted them to feel like that. Are you getting it now? It was meant for that purpose. Okay. Now, these things are sedatives. Okay. And they're meant to keep people under watch, meant for people that are under watch so they can easily manage them and control them in mental institutions. Now, the first of these drugs to market was Prozac. Prozac was done by Lilly, designed to control aggressive, mental institutionalized inmates into manageable zombie-like states. Okay, because these guys just had super strength, and not many of the it's not necessarily guards, but the nurses. And most of these guys are male nurses, and they couldn't control these guys because they would just the adrenaline that was running through the mental patients. They couldn't control them, so they needed something to keep them under control. So that's where these drugs popped up. Okay, so the side effects now, it didn't matter, or they thought it didn't matter, that it made people suicidal because these guys were under 24-hour surveillance. They were under watch. They were in a straitjacket. Wrong as it is, that's how they thought it would be. So guess what? So what if he's suicidal? They're under 24-hour watch. They're being watched all day. They're in a straitjacket. They're being watched. So it didn't really matter if they were suicidal because they were under constant surveillance. Now, what's changed? What's changed is that doctors started prescribing depressants, these depression drugs, to normal functioning folks like you. They started saying, "Hey, my psychiatric ward patients are doing great, so I'm gonna prescribe this to Jim or Jane Doe," meaning you, or even worse, your child, your teen, or your pre-adolescent child. That's where it gets crazy. Okay, so this is the history of this stuff. So you gotta stay with us. So what they started doing is giving depressants to to people, normal functioning folks that complained about being sad, about being depressed. I feel bad, and something's wrong, and so you go to the doctor and you say, "Doc, I don't feel like myself," and they go, "You know what? Try this. It's called Prozac. Try this. It's Zoloft." So they give it to you, and then you go home, you take a few of them, and it's a little manageable at first, but guess what? You feel like a zombie. Yeah, exactly. That was the point. They started giving it to normally functioning folks. And the normally functioning folks are online saying, "I don't feel like myself. I feel like The Walking Dead. I feel like that Walking Dead movie, and I could barely function. I could barely work. I can't work anymore. I just feel so down. My friend used to be on Prozac, and he couldn't. He was a broker. He was on commission. He couldn't work anymore." That's the point with these things. They make you feel like a zombie on purpose. On purpose. Okay. Now they even started giving these depressants, these depression drugs, to hyper kids. Maybe you heard of ADD and ADHD. They started diagnosing these kids, especially the kids in public school. To calm them down, they would prescribe, they would call the moms and the dads in and says, "Your kid is unmanageable. What are you giving this kid? Are you giving him cereal? Are you giving him sugar? Are you giving him candy? All right, we want you to stop that. We want you to stop because he's unmanageable. She's unmanageable. And as a matter of fact, we want to get him tested." So they tell you to go somewhere to go get him tested, and the little guys testing them go, "Okay, yeah, he's got it, she's got it. We're going to give you this drug to make them manageable." Well, guess what? Now your kid is in a zombie-like state because you bought what they were selling. There's nothing wrong with your kid, mom. There's nothing wrong with your child, dad. You should do what I did. Move your kid out of that school and put him in a different school. There's nothing wrong with your child. This is a money maker for these institutions. They get to sell you drugs that are high-priced drugs that make your kid, your teen, your pre-adolescent child zombie-like, so they can manage them just like the mental institutionalized patients. There's something wrong with that. You guys need to understand that and stop taking these pills, okay? So, that was the history, a short history lesson of these drugs. Okay, so now we're moving on to the next phase now. So now people are taking these suicide drugs. And that's why I call them, because that's what they are. They are suicide in a bottle. Okay? It was okay when the guy in the mental institution was in a straitjacket and he thought of, "Man, if I could just get my hands free, I will just hurt myself." And that's where the straitjackets came from, because they were giving these guys the drugs that made them feel like that, but not meant for functioning folks, functioning teens.